Wouldn't it be something if for our 250th birthday, America gets a third party and maybe a legitimate third party, one that actually has power and poses a threat to the Uniparty? Now, there's a lot of news about Tucker Carlson apparently either forming or helping to form a third party. What I've seen about that is he's not necessarily saying that he's forming one. He's saying he's going to be involved or is helping to form one. MTG, of course, is on board. I haven't seen anything from someone else I think is probably going to be involved, and that's going to be Thomas Massey. I'm thinking if they're forming a third party, Massey would probably be the man to run as president. He's got a huge following. A lot of people are telling him to run, I think far more than Tucker Carlson. And so this is going to get super interesting. I think it would be fitting if that's what we're going to get for our 250th birthday. Now, this, of course, is all the result of the fact that the people realize that neither party really is there to serve their interests, and this has been going on for a long time. It's just now that people are starting to realize it. There's a book from 1966. It's called Tragedy and Hope. You've probably heard me reference it before. You've probably heard about it. It's got a lot of famous quotes. And one of the most famous quotes from that is where Carol Quigley, the author of this book, says, "The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea acceptable only to doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead," he says, "this is what's happening. The two parties should be almost identical so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extensive shifts in policy." This is what's been going on. This is why the wars keep going no matter who's in power. It's why the debt keeps climbing no matter who's in power. It's why the size and the power of the government keeps growing at the expense of our liberties no matter who's in power. It's why we continue to lose value of the dollar. It's why we continue to lose our purchasing power. It's why we continue to become poorer as a people. Like everyone says, now we are at the point where our children are actually not going to be as well off as we were. I guess the boomers kind of peaked, and it's been somewhat downhill from there. And so this has been happening for a long time. The deterioration, the erosion has been going on. Now, one of the main points of opposition to this idea of a third party, in fact, aside from the fact that it's been tried before and it has failed miserably, no one has done really well. I think the most success has been when various independent candidates run on either the Democrat or the Republican platform. Ron Paul obviously comes to mind. He ran on the Republican platform. He did pretty good. I mean, not necessarily in the standings, but he did really well as far as building a following and opening people's eyes. I'm actually a result of that. I was red-pilled during the Ron Paul revolution of 2008. I remember watching him debate in the GOP primaries, and he was always like this. All his answers were so much different and weirder, or I thought they were weird, from everyone else. Whereas everyone else would always answer the questions under the assumption that the question was being presented, he would always kind of like upend the question. Like, for instance, like, how would you reform the Department of Energy or the Department of Education? We're having these problems, and all the little stooges, the Republicans are like, I would do this, and the so-so's like, I would do this, and Ron Paul would always be like, well, those departments shouldn't exist anyway. The government has no business in education. It's unconstitutional. It has no business in energy. I'm sure at some point he said it has no business in health and whatever. And I always thought that was kind of cool. I was like, I like this guy. I like what he's saying. It's like, why do we have to have like the idea that the government is too big, like really appealed to me because I was born in a communist country and I hate big government. And compared to where I was born, even here, it seemed far smaller. But then as I grew up and I matured, I realized that it's far too big. and that free people should not put up with this. We don't need Washington, D.C. Telling our teachers what to teach, uh, giving them curricula to whatever, drowning them in paperwork. As a reporter, I remember I did a series on a bunch of teachers that were retiring in the town that I was reporting on. And, on record, they were all very nice. And they're like, oh, it's been so great. I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity, blah, blah, the usual fluffy stuff. And then when I would turn off the recorder or when we were off record, we'd start talking because I always talk to people off record just because, whatever. I liked talking to people. And they all pretty much told me the same story, that the real reason they were quitting is because of the bureaucracy. They said every 4, 8, 10 years or whatever, every administration rolls out some agenda of education, which means more paperwork or different rules. And then they have to learn those stupid new rules. They have to do different paperwork or add more paperwork to the paperwork they were already doing. And it leaves them little room to teach. So basically, Washington is telling them, is impacting their teaching. And they were just tired of it. That's really what happened. They all told me that. All but maybe one or two. But I did like 5 or 6 interviews. So it's not working. It's not working. The government being this big is not working. And when Ron Paul said this, I was like, oh, that makes sense. I like this. And on the Democrat side, you had someone like Bernie Sanders, who was very popular, who was railroaded by the Democrats. And he was railing against, corporate fascism. And I know if you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, you're not supposed to believe that. But it's true. Sorry, it's true. There's corporate fascism. We have fascism. We have a melding of state and corporatism. We have it within the Trump administration. We had it within the Biden administration. This has been happening for a long time. You can call it what you want. You can call it statism, but it's fascism. It's kind of the classic definition of fascism, whereas Mussolini said, what did Mussolini say? Something about the emergence of state, of state and corporatism, of state and the market or something like that. Geez, I don't have it in front of me. So anyway, that's what it is. So we have tyranny, we have soft tyranny, we have a form of soft authoritarianism. That's what happens here. And so one of the ways that plays out is in the Uniparty. So the point of the Uniparty, one of the many points of the Uniparty, is to make you think that you have a choice. So for the most part, for a long time, come election time, whether it be midterms or especially presidential elections, the people thought that they were going to throw out the rascals, like Quigley said. And so they were like, yeah, and they'd get their hopes up and they'd talk about change, this and that and whatever. And they'd vote the people in and whatever. And then they'd get really ticked off. And the next year they'd switch parties, which is why there's always this switching back and forth. You can tell there's this ping-ponging between the GOP and the Democrats because the people in generally are always, it never works. It's like the trick. It's the trick, but they never really caught on. But now they're catching on. And people like Tucker are leading the charge somewhat, him and a few others. And they're like, we're done with this. We're done with this. This is like absolutely ridiculous. Now, Tucker, I've been watching Tucker get increasingly red-pilled over the last few years. I've been watching him for a long time as a journalist, as a writer, as a reporter. I have a lot of appreciation for his communication abilities. He's a very good writer. I don't know if you've read anything by Tucker. I've read his books. You read his magazine articles. He's a very good writer, very good communicator. And he's obviously very articulate, orally articulate. He's good at expressing ideas that I think a lot of us may have in our heads and maybe aren't as good. Anyway, so he's very good. He's very effective. He has built a very successful network after being fired by Fox for being Tucker and whatnot. So kudos to him. I don't really understand all the hate against him. I mean, I guess I kind of do. I think more or less it's like everything else. It's kind of like brainwashing. There's people who I respect who think he's like a Russian stooge or whatever, or Qatar or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised if he is paid by Qatar, but I wouldn't be like super, super duper surprised, I guess, in the sense that I don't think anyone is infallible. I have a lot of respect for him. But if I were to find out that he does get paid by Qatar, I'd be like, oh, but it's like, it's not going to crumble my paradigm, my worldview. It doesn't depend on Tucker. But here's what I think Tucker's doing right, and this is why he's building a following. First of all, I think he is principled. Even though he's somewhat pro-Russian or a lot pro-Russian, however you want to put it, I think it's based on a lot of good principle, on a lot of solid principles. Russia was goaded into this war. The documentation is plentiful. I've done articles on this. It exists. It shows. The Russians have been saying for a long time, why do you guys keep coming up in our sphere of influence here? And that's the way the world used to work. You don't go into a power nation sphere of influence, but the West did that. And their plan was to encircle Russia and put NATO bases all around them. And understandably so, the Russians, whatever their faults and foibles, of which there are many, they're like, we're not having this anymore. We're going to do something about this. So that's what happened there. Secondly, I don't give a crap about Ukraine. I don't give a crap about Russia. And I think that's where Tucker kind of comes from, is it's like, what is this obsession we have with Ukraine, with Russia, with Iran, with Israel, with all these, like, why are we're $40 trillion in debt, the American standard of living is eroding, like, significantly. Young people can't afford homes. There's lots of factors for that. I'm not saying it's all the fault of our leaders, but most of it is. It is our leaders. Our cities are crime ridden and whatnot. It's like there's a lot of bad things. It's like, why do we have this stupid obsession with all this overseas crap? Iran's not going to bomb us. They're lying to you. If you believe that Iran getting a nuke is going to somehow threaten us, you've been brainwashed. They're lying to you. No one wants to mess with us. If we leave everyone alone and we stay in our hemisphere, we stay mostly in our house, in our neighborhood, whatever, no one's going to come looking for a fight. That's just not the way it works. We have the most sophisticated military in the world. We have all these weapons. Like, nobody wants to poke the bear. That's just not how it's going to work. Iran's not going to want to do that. Okay? And as for what happens in that region, those people need to learn how to live with their neighbors. We get along with Canada. We get along with Mexico, more or less. It's like Mexico sends fentanyl over here, and they have gangsters over here, and somehow we manage to get along with them. They need to learn how to get along over there. And let's face it, Israel doesn't know how to get along with its neighbors. Not that its neighbors are angels. They have their own problems too, but there's a long history there, and I don't think we need to be involved in it because we haven't shown to be able to make anything better. We haven't improved things there. This idea, any American who believes that it is our business to be there and it is our business to control whether or not Iran has a nuclear bomb or whatever, it's like you've been brainwashed. Those people are not crazier than others who have nuclear bombs. They're not crazier than the Russians, than the North Koreans, and the Chinese. The Chinese government harvests their own people's, like, organs, a lot of them while they're alive. There's all sorts of stuff. The Pakistanis have nuclear weapons. The Israelis have nuclear weapons, and they're obviously nuts. So what is this thing? What is this obsession that only the Iranians are crazier than everyone else? That's just simply not true. It's not true. It never was true. It's all part of there's something more going on over there. But the point being is, the American people don't give a crap. We do not care what is happening over there. Israel's problem is not our problem. We have lots of problems here. The people who are elected, the people who we put in Congress, the people we put in the White House, the federal agencies that we pay up the butt for to fund, they're supposed to be watching out for us. They're supposed to be helping us have a better life and carry out agendas, projects, programs, whatever you want to call it, that serve our interest. It does not serve our interest when our men and women are sent overseas to fight wars for other countries. It does not serve our interest when we go over there and then gas doubles just as we're barely trying to get inflation under control, whatnot. So it's like, anyone who believes this, anyone who believes we've been at war for 47 years, you've been brainwashed the same way that you've been brainwashed into believing that Republicans and the Democrats are different. That's simply what it is. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was on a podcast recently, and he talked about how the CIA has like hundreds of journalists or whatever. And this has been known for a long time. It came out, I believe, I'm not sure if it was during the Church and Pike Committee hearings or whatnot, but it came out a long time ago. And so the intelligence agencies have massive control over the news agencies. So what you're seeing, what you're getting is propaganda, and it's propaganda that's formed by the deep state, by the intelligence agencies, by these various groups who all kind of overlap, and they make up, whether you want to call it the deep state, sometimes the international insiders, or as one of my colleagues, my very smart colleagues, call them, the international oligarch class. They have these interests, so they manipulate us with mass propaganda through magazines, through the news, social media, of course. They buy, bot armies, and they pay firms to launch coordinated campaigns. The whole thing is it's fake. It's just fake. As someone likes to say, it's fake and gay. That's another thing. It's like, it's fake. The news you're getting is fake. It's been fake for a long time. The science has been fake for a long time. The education that our kids are getting, it's fake. It's really not education. That's really not their main interest. Okay? The educational part is a facade for the brainwashing that they're out there to commit. It's all this managed reality. It's a matrix. And part of that has been this duopoly, this Republican Democrat false dichotomy that we thought existed. Obviously, there are some legitimate, it's funny I'm saying this now, there are some legitimate differences, right? This on the social, but those are fabricated, right? And you can tell they're fabricated because they'll come up with the dumbest things. Like, remember when they try to tell us that women can be men and men can be women? It's like, obviously, that's so stupid. Obviously, that's like a psyop. Clearly, that's a stupid psyop. It's a distraction. And sure enough, it worked. And unfortunately, you have so many mentally ill people now, and so many brain damaged people, and so many brainwashed people that they bought into it. And, it's like those people need help. And we don't need to hate them and to necessarily vilify them. And brainwashing, saying they're brainwashed is not vilifying them, by the way, because that's exactly what's happening. We need to basically get our institutions that are responsible for that. First of all, we need to get them to fall in line. They're not. Right now, you have like behavioral health experts who are condoning this. And so the crazies are running the asylum. Like, everyone's crazy, including the people who are supposed to like address the crazies. So it's really difficult. But one thing that makes everything worse is this idea where we went along with it, and a lot of people kept their mouths shut, and they didn't really say anything. And this thing just kept going and going and going, and just kept getting crazier, just like the whole homo lobby has gotten crazier. It started in the 90s when they said, oh, they just want to be tolerated and be respected and left alone. And, decent people are like, look, I don't care for it, but whatever you do, that's fine. I just, just leave me out of it. But, you can do whatever you want in your bedroom, I guess, whatever. It's like, leave us alone, right? It's like, you keep badgering me. Okay. We'll leave you alone. Shut up. Now just go away. But that's not all they wanted. Then it kept getting kookier and crazier. And now they have parades where they're marching around naked and twerking and in leather and stuff. It's got so depraved because that's where this always goes. They're very depraved people. They're very deviant people, and their goal, the agenda, you have to realize that behind what you see on the surface, there are groups with lots of funding. There is agendas that are being funded and fueled by very satanic people. And their goal is more than just to build tolerance for gays and bis and trans or whatever. No, they want to destroy society, and they want to destroy the blueprint that God created. What this is it's anti-Christ behavior. It is an attempt to basically upend all the rules, all the precepts, everything that makes everything according to the order of God. They want to upend that. That's what's really at stake here. Anyway, we were talking about the Uniparty. So what's this third party going to be like? Is there really going to be one? I don't know. Elon mentioned it a little bit, then he kind of backed off there. I'm sure he realized it wouldn't be good for his projects and whatnot. So is he going to be involved? I don't know. But I think there's a market for it. And especially now, I think, especially with Gen Z, I think with Gen Z, we have an opportunity to um, make a big difference. You know, as the boomers die off, which is the most brainwashed uh, generation, which is the most gullible generation, the most naive generation that's probably ever existed in American history. And I talked about this previously, like, why are boomers like this? You know, there's a lot of great boomers. I happen to know probably the best of them because I'm associated with an organization that has been red pill since the 1960s, but they're the exception. But boomers are, I think they are the way they are is because, first of all, they grew up in a world right after World War II, and the rest of the world was devastated, and so the world was America's oyster. So they actually got all the benefits of emerging globalism. They bought into, you know, they grew up with TV, with newspapers, whatever, when it was completely captured. So they've been marinating in propaganda for a very, very, very long time. They also grew up during the Cold War. And so if you grow up during the Cold War, you have this mentality that there are threats. You know, there are real big threats, and so I think with that mentality, being so brainwashed and having for such a large part of your life lived in this kind of this tension between the West and the Soviets over there, you're kind of still in that mindset. So when they tell you, "Oh, Iran is going to get a nuclear bomb and whatever," it's like maybe you're thinking it's like that's a legitimate threat. It's just not. It really isn't. It's not Soviet Russia. Okay, and we beat Soviet Russia, by the way, so good for us. So the world is not what they think it is, but they don't want it to stop thinking it is what they think it is. So anyway, I think as that generation kind of dies off and the X generation X, my generation X, comes more in charge, and also the big voting blocks of Gen Z. Gen Z is really, I think Gen Z is very encouraging to see what's happening there. I think we're going to get more momentum on this third party idea or whatever. I think there's a few things that even progressives, as they call them, leftists, and real MAGA people, real America First people have in common. The most obvious is the anti-war deal. We can all get behind that. So I think that's something they need to focus on. Second, um, the um, the whole anti-big food thing. Now, I think that's something that I think the granola Democrats were actually the first ones on this train. This is something that was big long before it became nationwide. That being, you know, this Maha move. It started out with the, you know, granola Democrats in California and Oregon and Washington. You know, you have a lot of that stuff there. You know, eating organic and, you know, living off the land and things like that, using natural soap and whatnot. So that's another thing. The Maha thing. I think that's something we can agree. Another thing we can agree is, like, we're all anti-fascist. You know, they're always talking about fascism, and sometimes they see fascism where there is, but there really is fascism. And so it's like we can all come and say, okay, yeah, we're anti-fascism too. I don't think these corporations should have all this say in, you know, in the surveillance and manipulation, in writing, writing bills. You know, the food lobby and pharma lobby, they have immense influence over the bills that are written, and they're written to basically aid and to protect them. And so I think we can all agree it's like we need to stop that. I think we could also agree that maybe we need to get big money out of politics. I know this was kind of like a leftist thing, but we just watched Thomas Massey get ousted by like $40 million of like APAC money or whatever. It's like has nothing to do with Kentucky. Unfortunately, though, the blame falls on the people, and the people believe that horse crap. So that's unfortunate, but it worked. So we need to get that out of there. And transparency. I think Democrats and Republicans can all agree that we need to know what the hell the government is doing. They can't keep hiding stuff. And so there are lots of issues that I think we can focus on together. And so I hope something comes of it. In an ideal world, in an ideal world, we would have a Congress that would have behaved, acted as a bulwark against these abuses, a Congress that would demand transparency, a Congress that would not let big food, big pharma, big chemical, whatever, write bills and lobby and whatever. But we don't have that. We just don't have a Congress that actually gives a crap about the people and the U.S. Constitution. Obviously, you have some people, but most of them, they're not. They're very depraved. They're very corrupt. They're greedy. These are just not high quality people. That's just the way it is. That's obviously what it is. Now, we have at the New American, we have a freedom index where we gauge the scores, the freedom scores of every member of Congress, including, and then we have state versions too. And you can see that most members of Congress have a very, very low score when it comes to how much they obey the U.S. Constitution. They just don't. I don't know if it's because they don't know, they don't care, but for whatever reason. But if we were to have that, what we would have is, like I said, we would have resistance to all these violations that we're talking about. If we had that, for instance, we would have had a government, a Congress, who would have told President Trump, hey, dude, you can't launch a war by yourself. That's not how this works. That's not what the Constitution says. The commander-in-chief clause comes after the clause that says that Congress raises armies, Congress appoints, decides when we go to war. That's clear. And in case you're still confused, you can read the Federalist Papers, where Hamilton explains that this is not like the King of England. You don't get to declare war. But we don't have that. Moreover, we have a lot of people who are like, oh no, as commander-in-chief, he can launch a war. It's like, no, that's not what it says. That's not what it says. There's nothing that says that. There's no war powers resolution that would have justified this too. So anyway, we don't have a Congress that would do its job. So we're kind of in this place. I think maybe eventually, when the boomer block dies off and they're no longer the main voters, I think we could have a chance with a new generation of voters. But until then, I see this as a multi-decade project, at least a decade project. And so third party, is that the answer? No idea. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made for the fact that when something like this happens, you might be siphoning off votes from the less nuttier wing of the party. But basically what we're done then is, our decision is this: do we die as a country fast or do we die slow? Because that's where we're going. And I'm just tired of that argument. I'm tired of, like, you can never do anything different, because then the super crazy people, then they'll get into power and they'll expedite this destruction. Because obviously that's intentional. Obviously that argument is designed to do exactly what it's done, which is basically dissuade and disincentivize another challenger. Doesn't look like Tucker cares. I think maybe they have a better plan. Maybe this time they'll succeed where, the other third party people, the Naders and the Buchanans or whatever, didn't succeed. We'll see. But it's our 250th, and I'm glad to be an American, a naturalized American as it is. I'm glad to be here. I think the World Cup visitors have reminded us, for those of us who did need a reminder, that there's still nothing like America. The fact that America is still so awesome is a testament to what our previous generations built, to the principles that undergird this society. Again, it's crumbling. There's an attempt. There's a massive assault on it, but it's still standing. And I think we can save it. I think we can restore it and save it. And I think the people who want to destroy it are terrified because they see what's going on. And these World Cuppers, they're coming here and they're like, man, America's awesome. It's big and they have so much. And apparently they have AC and ranch. And, they're having fun. They see that we have all this space. We have beautiful homes. We have a lot of blessings, and America is great, and there's no place like it. Never has been. This is the closest that we ever got to a perfect experiment in self-government. And maybe we could get back on track, or maybe that's only going to happen after Jesus' second arrival. Either way, the future's bright, whichever way you want to look at it. Hey, listen, if you made it to this all the way here at the end, how long has this going? I can't tell how long it's been going on. Go ahead and subscribe and tell others about this Substack, and whatever you do to help. Uh, if you're feeling extra generous, you can get a paid subscription. I don't charge yet for subscription. So anyway, thank you. God bless you, and God bless the USA.